Hello, my loves, and thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you are having an absolutely fabulous day, because here in the nation's capital, it is a crisp, beautiful spring day, beautiful blue sky, a little windy, but honey, we'll take it. So I wanted to chat with you today because I got so many questions about our gender reveal, and a lot of people were curious about how we came upon the idea to do a skydive gender reveal. I mean, just so many questions that I was like, let me just answer my friends here and let everybody know. So as a little backstory, one of Michael and my first dates was actually skydiving at that exact location. It's Skydive Orange, which is in Orange, Virginia. And I don't know if Michael was testing me to see if I could keep up with him, but that literally was one of the first dates that he took me on. I have to admit I was a little nervous because while I am a thrill seeker, I had never had an adrenaline rush to that degree, so I was a little bit nervous. But after Michael and I skydived together, it was almost like we were even more connected, whether it be the adrenaline or just like having, your life basically flash before your eyes because you're flying mid-air, for at terminal velocity for about 30 seconds. And quite frankly, it's an exhilarating experience, and we shared it together. So I think that was one of the things that binded us as soon as we first met. And then, so as I was thinking about how do we want to tell our friends and family about our baby, because I had been pretty private about our family, mainly because I wanted to give our family an opportunity to just kind of grow. And Michael and I had some, different timetables about when we wanted to have a family. So the fact that we had come to the conclusion of having a family together, and at the same time, it just had so much meaning to me. And motherhood is something that I've always admired and cherished. I think a lot of that is because I have such a great relationship with my own mom that it just felt like such an important, special thing for me that I wanted to keep to myself. But at the same time, I have after we talked about our pregnancy and announced it, the amount of positive support that we received was overwhelming. And I realized that I have an incredible support system of amazing people who actually really do care about us and love us. And that made me realize that, of course, I want to share this process, especially because I had an interesting journey to get to the point of being pregnant. And so many women had helped me, so many resources online, women I talked to in person had helped me to get to the point of motherhood that I felt like it would be a disservice to my child, to the journey, and to all of you wonderful supporters to not share about it. So the gender reveal to me had to be something that was special because this is our first child together, and we are a pretty adventurous, thrill-seeking couple. So I first thought about just doing it simply and having a normal gender reveal. That was actually my first inclination. I was like, let's just do something low-key with the fam, like have a little barbecue or something, chill out on the rooftop of our condo and have friends and family over. But it just didn't sit right. I was like, no, something is missing. This isn't right. So while I was taking a nap one day, I was dreaming about, I actually can't remember what I was dreaming about, but when I woke up, skydive was on my mind. And skydive was the first word that came to my brain as soon as I woke up. And I knew that a skydive gender reveal was going to be what we would do. Now, obviously, I am pregnant, and it is not advisable to skydive for a number of reasons. So I needed to also convince Michael to want to do it. And I didn't have any doubts that he would be on board to do so, but at the same time, I can't speak for him. I can't assume he's just going to want to do it. So I presented him with the idea of doing a skydive gender reveal, and he loved it. So I was like, okay, winning, great. And the next step was finding a venue to do so. Now, I had looked up on YouTube a few different skydive gender reveals, and there are some, and they're pretty cool, but they weren't really to the magnitude that I wanted. Because I had such a great experience when I skydived with Michael, and we had great video footage of that. I wanted that same essence to be captured for the gender reveal. Also because when our child looked back, I want him or her at that time to be able to see how cool and how thoughtful it was for us to think about his or her coming into this life. So I contacted 3 different skydiving places, and ultimately Skydive Orange, which is in Orange, Virginia, was the most communicative and helpful company to work with. And they really stepped up to the plate. And I was really apprehensive because I had this vision. And part of the problem when you have a vision is not everybody shares your vision. So the apprehension is that they're not going to necessarily get what you're trying to say, or they're not going to capture what you wanted. So I was a little bit nervous, and actually I was nervous leading all the way up to the actual day that we went skydiving. When we got there, we got the most incredible treatment from all of the people who were there, skydivers and other people who had come to experience it. There's almost like a sense of camaraderie when you go skydiving. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just the thrill or the excitement of knowing that you're going to be hanging in midair, but it's like when you go to the hangar and you're waiting there for the plane to come and pick you up, there's just a sense of like friendship amongst the people waiting to jump with their tandem skydive instructor. And that feeling that I had the first time was also replicated again this time, and even more so now because this was an even more special experience to be talking about and sharing the gender of our baby. And what they ended up doing for us was they took an old parachute that was no longer usable, because that happens, obviously. I mean, can you imagine the wear and tear of a parachute after jumping out at terminal velocity at 13,500 feet, maybe 10 or 15 times a day? One can only imagine. So they take these old parachutes and they repurpose them. There's a great girl at Skydive Orange named Leah she repurposes these parachutes into hammocks and into bench covers and all types of things. And I loved the concept of that. So what she did was she took an old parachute and she sewed it up to make a pouch. Now, the way the pouch worked is Michael was going to put one side of the pouch on his wrist and he was going to hold the other side of the pouch. And when it was time, he was going to pull it apart. And when he pulled it apart, there was going to be blue flour that was going to come out through the apparatus. So in order to get the actual blue flour into the pouch, they Velcroed it up to a certain size, like this much. They put a cone in there, like a funnel, and then they funneled in the blue flour that was going to ultimately seal up and then come out. So I thought it was a genius idea. Now, they didn't share this with me. This all came to me when I got there. So I was like, oh my gosh, it was even a surprise for me, you know? And of course I knew the gender of baby D because I had to tell them what color flour to get. But the thought that they had put into it was incredible. And I was so impressed. So the next thing was to work out how Michael is going to do it. Now, Michael is an incredibly agile, strong, athletic guy. So I didn't have any worries about him doing it, you know, his actual ability of jumping out of the plane. But I did have some concern about when you're flying at terminal velocity in the air, your face is like, you can't really do anything with your mouth. You have no control over your body. Your limbs are just flailing. So I was wondering, how exactly is Michael going to be able to pull this thing apart when he's falling with the wind constantly coming into his face? And honestly, he tells me this later, he had the same thought, because as Michael is flying through the air, he said he initially was trying to pull it, but there was so much wind and so much resistance that he was having a hard time pulling it. And he said he started panicking a little because, like, there is no redo for this. Like, we're not gonna, go back up in the plane to redo this. So this was like a one-time deal. You better get it right. And He's like, Ashley, I had a little moment there, like, oh, I couldn't get it. And then finally it opened up. And the color of the blue, I was able to see it from the ground. I tried to take some cell phone video, but it wasn't good quality because it was pretty faint. But I saw this blue powder that was up in the air, and I knew that was my husband, and I knew that that was when we were essentially like telling everybody about the gender of our baby. And it meant so much to me, even on the ground, to look up and to see that. So as Michael comes down, there was just this feeling of elation, at least, that I felt, and he did too. He had the adrenaline rush of falling through the air, and then at the same time, he knew that the actual reveal itself had gone well. And what he said to me later was he really wanted me to be happy, and he knew how important it was to me. And so he was considerate and really wanted to make sure that it went well, the actual reveal. And he said he felt like it went great, even though we couldn't quite see yet because we hadn't seen the footage, but he said he felt like it went great, and he knew that that would make me really happy. And honestly, like, as an emotional pregnant woman, very emotional, the fact that he thought about me to that degree made me feel really special and reiterated to me that I am with the man I'm supposed to be married to, and that he shares my vision and my passion for our lives. And if anything, I feel like both of us deciding to do something fun and exciting, like jumping out of a plane in order to share with our friends and family about the gender of our child, really sets the tone for how we're going to approach parenthood. We're obviously not conventional people. We have a 30-year age gap between us. Well, 29 years. Michael, yes, it's 29 years. 29-year age gap between us, and we come from different backgrounds, and we have different family structures. We have different everything. And yet, at the same time, we have this commonality of loving each other, and we're bringing a child into this world in this common love that we share. So it just, in addition to the initial process of sharing with our friends and family at Christmas about being pregnant, and even just talking and doing our communication exercises about parenthood, the bond between my husband and me is just growing stronger and stronger and stronger. And the gender reveal was just one of the ways that we are further getting closer. And just I really do think it kind of sets the precedent for how we want to be as parents. Exciting. We don't want to necessarily follow convention. We both have the desire to keep life interesting and fun, and that's part of the reason that we decided to get married, is we do share that desire. So at any rate, that was how we planned our gender reveal. Came to me in my sleep. We worked with Skydive Orange to conceptualize this great idea to make sure that it would be impactful. And we just announced that we were bringing our son into this world with that. So I had to share with you because a lot of people had asked me, and I wanted to tell everybody, but unfortunately, especially these days, honey, with these naps I need to take, I wasn't able to respond to absolutely everybody. So it was nice to be able to, I wanted to just encompass it and tell you all everything, because it was a really special moment for me. And I know that parenthood is going to have its share of challenges and ups and downs. And just like with life, I have the philosophy of celebrating the good times and going full throttle with the happiness factor, because inevitably there's always another side, there's duality in absolutely everything. So I knew that I wanted to make sure that we had celebrated the coming of our child and overcoming the obstacles in our relationship, and now having a very strong and healthy marriage, that having this gender reveal was just another way to celebrate this beautiful occasion. So next, is the birth. So Baby D's room is already ready pretty much. We have the crib and we have the wallpaper set up. Everything is ready for him to make his grand entrance, which will be soon. The next time that we chat, I will be sharing some other things about my pregnancy, because I do share my life with the world, and we're not filming Real Housewives of Potomac right now as I'm going through all of this, so I don't have that platform to be able to share things that are happening. So I want to still be connected and to still share with those of you who are invested and who have shared elements of your life. I want to reciprocate that back to you. So please stay tuned and join me again. I love you all so very much. Endless amounts of love and light and prosperity to each and every one of you. Bye, darlings.